So, ladies and gentlemen, today on Sports File, this is a little shout out to two of my favorite sports fans, Bobby Freeze in Dalhousie and my friend Bo Sheaves from Nakwik, who've been great supporters of this audio version of Sports File column. Bobby has been a big fan of my print Sports File column dating back to the 1980s with Dalhousie News, and Bo is a recent, recruiter, and both always give me good suggestions and support for the podcast, so this is dedicated to both of them. We're going to talk today about probably the best European player of the 1980s, and that's saying a lot. To some great talent in the decade. The Slovak superstar, Peter Stastny. Now, known by his nicknames also Peter the Great and Stash, is a retired Slovak-Canadian professional ice hockey player who played the NHL from 1980 to 1995. Now, he's the second highest scorer of the 1980s after Wayne Gretzky, and that's great company. But he is most well known for his time with the Quebec Nordiques, when he changed the team's outlook and changed the NHL by one decision to leave the communist country that gave him his hockey start and come to the NHL. Now, he was inducted in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1998 and ranks 34th all-time in NHL points and second overall for players born in Slovakia. In 2017, Stastny was named as one of the 100 greatest NHL players in history, and is, of course, the father of the great Vegas Golden Knights forward Peter Stastny, who has had great acclaim as well in his young career. Now, Peter Stastny was a big scorer in the NHL in the 1980s, and he was not only offensive, he was great on defense. He started his career in the NHL with the Quebec Nordiques in 1980, later to the New Jersey Devils, and of course the St. Louis Blues. When Anton had a great career in Czechoslovakia, he found he was hampered by the communist system in Czechoslovakia to continue his his personal and professional life as a top flight player. He was a great star at the 1976 Canada Cup for Czechoslovakia, and Marcel Robu and other people involved with the Nordiques, they made connections with Stastny, and when Stastny and his brother Anton, who was also a great player, decided to make connections to come to Canada to play in the NHL, it marked a great turning point in hockey relations. At the time, the Czechoslovakian and Russian players were considered top flight as young prospects, but they were so hampered by the Czechoslovakian and Russian system of communism, they couldn't do anything. Defection was called a clandestine attempt to basically not only improve the Nordiques, but to give a chance for the Stastny brothers to play in the league that really could appreciate them. And when the other brother Marion came over, all three of them eventually played for the Nordiques. Now they became the third trio of brothers to play in the same professional hockey team, including the great Bentley brothers and the players of the Blues in the 1970s. Now, this opened the door to a whole bunch of defections of Czechoslovakian Soviet hockey players. Previously, Vaclav Nemansky and a few other people had decided to play in Canada or got their release, but in this case, it really turned around the fortunes of Quebec Nordiques, and here's why. The Nordiques were having difficulty competing in the NHL just with Francophone players. Obu saw a chance to bring Quebec to the next level, and that's what the Stashnys did. They were prolific goal scorers on the same line, in some cases getting 10, 12, 14 points between them in a game, and that was tremendous. And the Montreal Canadiens were the bearers of their great play. In '82, the Nordiques knocked off Montreal in the playoffs. '84 it was another big series that Montreal won, but '85 in the rematch with Steve Penny in net, Stastny scored a winning goal in Game 7 in overtime. See, the Nordiques were not even going to make the playoffs without the Stashnys. The Stashnys showed up, and they became a top 8 NHL contender with hopes of the Stanley Cup. Now, in his career in the NHL, he scored 450 goals and 789 assists for 1,239 points. Now, after retiring as a player, he captained his home country's Slovak national team in various international tournaments, and is probably one of the most popular athletes in Slovakia. Now, we're going to go over some of Stastny's NHL records, and this is so many to count, I'm just going to go in the highlights. He became the first player in NHL history to collect over 100 points in his rookie year. Now, the reason why he was such a prolific point scorer, because he knew how to go to net like Jacques Lemaire. He knew how to pass like Wayne Gretzky. He knew how to be aggressive like Esposito and some of the Team Canada, what they call friendly rivals that Czechs had played. He played a combination of Russian, Czechoslovakian, and North American style. Extremely, extremely effective. And his rookie year, he won the Calder Trophy. And he became the second first year player to get more than 100 points in an NHL season. Of course, Gretzky was the first one, but he had played with the Racers and the Oilers before. Now, he's only one of 4 players to record 100,000 or more points in the decade of 1980s. One of 7 players in NHL history to record at least 6 consecutive 100-point seasons. He holds the NHL record for points in a game by a rookie with 8. In that famous game on February 22nd in 81 against the Capitals, which Mary and Anton also had great point totals. He holds an NHL record for points in 2 consecutive games with 14, when he had 6 points against Vancouver and the 8 points against Washington, an infamous game. He recorded his 1,000th NHL point on 19th of October 1989, becoming the second European player to do that besides the great Stan Mikita. He's the 4th fastest player in NHL history to score 200 points, second fastest in history to score 300 points, and on and on and on. He broke all kind of records. Now, Stastny, who was born in Bratislava, was part of a big family, and he once said in published reports he felt that Canada would be the best option to continue his career. He could have easily went to an American team when he came over. And, it's his number 26 also has become iconic because he made the number so important to NHL and international hockey fans. And Stastny is considered what you call a thinking man's player. When Gretzky had that thinking man attitude on the ice, Stastny, even going back when I saw him initially in the 76 Canada Cup, there was a lot going on there. He was not scared to take face-off. He was not scared to be aggressive. He was not scared to take the dirty duty, be double-shifted and all that. And Marion and Anton obviously weren't as talented as their brother, but my God, when they were rolling, we always figure if the Nordiques would have got 2 more players to back up Stastny and Marion and Anton on the second or third line, what they would have done. But the Tig Bergeron had always said about Stastny, you don't need to coach this guy, just saying he knew how to go to the net, he knew how to get things done. Now, it's kind of weird how he became a folk hero in Quebec, and this is the weird part too. When he came to the Nordiques, he learned how to speak French before he learned how to speak English. Because European players are around, a lot of English people throughout the year, either in rep leagues or pro leagues or international hockey. But Stastny, there was always something going on. He would go on Hockey Night in Canada when he learned how to speak English and French properly. He would talk about hockey. The man still is a hockey genius. You would learn so much by watching Stastny play, because he was the precursor to Steve Yzerman. He was the precursor, almost like you look at Austin Matthews and even John Tavares with Toronto. You look at Brendan Gallagher with Montreal. Again, he was a pure goal scorer. He was a pure passer. He was aggressive on the ice. He didn't take any crap. He wasn't scared to drop the gloves. He wasn't scared of Montreal. He wasn't scared of any criticism in the media because, like I said, I'm here to do my job. There's no ego with this man too. This individual basically said to his family, I'm going to seek better climbs in Canada and see where it takes me. And he not only changed hockey history, he changed international sports history. Because before there was defections, but defections weren't direct. They would defect, but they weren't making any immediate impact. The NHL needed Peter Stastny in the early 80s because the dilution of talent when the WHA teams came in, Bobby Hall had quit, Gordie Howe had quit. Keon was the end of his career like the WHA played. He was kind of the last WHA player not to ever play in the WHA. He had that feel also with Ulf Nielsen, Anders Hedberg, Schoberg, again, an all-around player. And Bo Sheaves had told me, Bo's he's a big Toronto fan, but he was a big fan of the Nordiques, and he loved Peter Stastny. And as a Montreal Canadian fan growing up, I could never hate Peter Stastny because you want to be beaten by the best players out there if you're going to lose. There was no disgrace losing to Quebec back then with the Stashnys and Goulet and everybody else playing. They were destined to have success. My only regret is the modern generation of NHL hockey fans have never heard of Quebec Nordiques, only heard about Eric Lindros, the bad way they were treated. But Marcel Aubout made a decision to bring these people in, and it basically changed the way we look at international hockey. Because Canada never hated the Czechs, we hated the Russians. Because the Czechs would always do good against the Russians at World Championships, and the Czechs were pro-Canada. And the Slovaks as well, Czechoslovakia as we say. So on this beautiful Tuesday, we want to remind everybody out there, there's many games involving Peter Stastny involved on YouTube, especially the 82 series and 85. But I still wonder if Quebec would have got those two more players, like one defenseman and one great forward additionally, if they would have won the cup. They were that close. But for some reason he couldn't get past the Bruins, he couldn't get past Montreal sometimes. Don't forget, Montreal teams were overachieving a little bit in the mid-80s, especially the 86 Cup. But with Quebec, it was pure power. I mean, with the three Stashnys, I would always see the defenseman the other team just backing up and say, let's let them make a mistake, which they rarely did. So again, I'm telling everybody, keep your stick on the ice. And if you like my podcast, by the way, give me a comment, a like, a subscribe. I do appreciate it. We've just passed 18,000 page views, which is tremendous, because this is a startup podcast that is not controlled by ads, not controlled by any media. This is something that as a tribute to my readers. And you know how much readers over the years have been important to me, because you really understand where I'm coming from. And I do this podcast for you. You know, when I went blind a few years ago, I came up with an idea to come back something with my media company, and doing this as part of it. And I'm going to be expanding my podcast channel maybe to video down the road if everything goes good. And again, requests are always important. And for today, Bo and Bobby Freeze, and don't forget Bobby Freeze's Facebook site. It's a closed group, but it's posting pictures about Dalhousie and area sports, hockey, baseball, great legacy up there, the Dodgers, the Rangers, everybody else, the Legionnaires, the Dalhousie Police Force teams, Eagle Bar, Falcons and Lady Falcons, Condors, Cyclones, Lady Condors, Lady Cyclones, the whole thing. So again, keep your stick in the ice, and don't forget, if you see Peter Stastny in public, just go up and say, listen, thank you for changing the NHL, because he is, in my opinion, one of the top 20 most important people in NHL history. And that's saying a lot. There's been a lot of great people, but he is top 20. Have a good day. Bye.